Not really my comment, but it's just like to recap what just happened here because it can be kind of confusing. It starts in the future already. Like it's talking about what happened to John the Baptist, but the first few verses, it says, "At the time Herod heard the news about Jesus." Right. So Herod heard about Jesus. He said to his servants, "This is John the Baptist. He's been raised from the dead. This is why these miraculous powers are at work through him." So John the Baptist was already dead at this part, right? So as soon as Herod, the ruler, heard about Jesus, he got confused. He thought that Jesus was Herod reincarnated. That's what he said, or however he thought. He thought that Herod thought that Jesus was John the Baptist. He said, "This is John the Baptist. He's been raised from the dead," because he had already beheaded him, right?
Mhm.
I think he was out of it. I think his death really took a toll on him as far as he didn't want to kill him. It was just a request from his girlfriend's daughter or whatever she was to him at the time. So it continues to say again, his miraculous powers are at work through him. So then verse 3, it tells a story of what came before that. So Herod had arrested John, put him in prison because of Herodias, the wife of Herod's brother. So essentially, Herod's brother's wife, um, Herodias, got together with Herod, and John the Baptist had something to say about it, and Herodias was mad about it. So during this party that they're having, there's guests around. Herodias' daughter, aka the stepdaughter of Herod, right? That's the daughter of Herodias, his girlfriend, comes up to him. She's dancing. She's like amusing everybody, and he says, "I'll give you whatever you want. Let me know what you want." She goes to her mom and she says, "Why should I ask him?" And because of that grudge that she had, because of that, uh, not really a diss, but she was disrespected. She felt like she was disrespected by John the Baptist when he called her out that she shouldn't be with the ruler because she's his wife's brother and all that. And I think at some parts here, I don't know if it's this chapter, but I believe she was also Herod's niece. I think that's in Luke or another reference. So not only was Herodias the wife of Herod's brother, but also that was his niece. So they were like family, and it was all wrong. So that's why she was annoyed at John the Baptist and asked her daughter to ask for the head of John the Baptist, and that's when uh, hesitantly the king, the ruler Herod, asked for John the Baptist's head, and that was the sad death of. I think after that he was kind of paranoid, and he thought that the John the Baptist was coming back. Uh, he thought Jesus was him. I don't know what he thought exactly, but he definitely was wrong. And so that's just a recap of that first, because it could be. I read it like twice before I really understood what was going on, the order of it, because I'm like, when did John the Baptist resurrect? I'm like thinking like, what the heck? So I went back and I read it again because every time you take a break from reading these chapters, it might go away from your memory, like what really happened. So you got to dig in again and find out.
It's it's I actually every time I've read this I mean verse over here, it's like it's so sad. Like John the Baptist, like basically, he was making the way for Jesus, and like his death is just like the worst, like one of the worst death that I can, that happened there, like especially for somebody so close to Jesus in that sense of like making the way for him. So I always think about how sad it is. And also one of the things that points out like how the king was basically like, you know, kind of like influenced, to do something he kind of didn't want. Um, you know, he was in this party and he was surrounded by, other people, and he made, this is why like your words matter so much, and you got to watch who you hang out with and what you do and what you say, because like for example, he should have never said to her like, I'll give you whatever you want. Like that was just probably in the midst of a party, or with other people trying to show off whatever he wanted to, off his power and all that stuff. And the last thing he thought it was going to happen was that he was going to, she was going to want like John's head in a platter, so like, and then at that point he didn't want to look bad, saying kind of like, oh well, I'm not gonna do that, you know. So, but because he was a king and everybody looked up to him in that sense, like he didn't want to like look bad, right? Like so sometimes, you know, because of your people you surround yourself, you don't want to look bad and you do things you don't want to do. Um, and it's always, I always have that thought, like, you know, like, you know, you can be influenced really quick without even knowing. You know, if he didn't have that party, you know, he probably would have never done something like that. You know, but it is what it is. It happened. So
That's what I was going to say is that he didn't want to. It said that Herod wanted to kill John, but he was afraid of the people. So he kind of wanted to, but didn't want to. And to kind of bring that back to us, and I think something we can learn from that is he basically just didn't want to be embarrassed in this party in front of all these people. So we shouldn't put ourselves in a situation like that to where we have to do something against what we actually want or what is actually right. So even though Herod was obviously very corrupt, a lot of these stories and things we're able to actually take and learn from it. That he he didn't ultimately want to do that, but he had to because he didn't want to embarrass himself. So determine what is right, and you got to stick to that. It doesn't matter if embarrassment or anything like that comes up, like it did for John or for Herod.
It also says like it was prompted by her mother. So I would like to assume that she pretty much induced her to just like make that dance and just like get into what she wanted eventually with, which was the John Baptist's death. So I mean, when you're talking about like kings and like the image that they had to portray, it pretty much has to be, your word is everything. And like when you say that kind of like statement, saying that I will give you whatever you want, you couldn't retract from that. So everything. I mean, that verse that said that it was prompted by her mother pretty much defines, and I would assume that it was just like planned the whole thing by Herodias to just like get into that point.